Okay, today we're going to start Daf Kuf Chav Tes Samad Aleph, and 3 lines from the bottom. Amar of Sheshes, it's 129a. 3 lines from the bottom. Thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. This chas of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Learning the Nishma, Savabal Basra Daf, the son of Ben Zion, and also Shleima Farben David Ben Sarah and Vidal Yetzal. And anything else? No. Sheikh now, right? Okay. I have to leave early today, so I don't think I'll get the full time in, but I'll leave about 7:10. Amar of Sheshes. Mina Minala. Sheshes says, where do I know what I just said? So let's go back and just say what Rav Sheshes said. We were discussing over here if someone uses the word matana in distributing his inheritance, so it works. He uses the word matana even though the person wasn't supposed to inherit, because he's giving it at matana means a gift. If he's giving it as a gift, so then instead of an inheritance, it's a gift. So then he can allocate wherever he would like it to go. It said that if he uses the word matana, whether it's the beginning, whether it's in the middle, whether it's at the end, it takes over from the Yerusha. He says Yerusha, which means inheritance. The word matana overtakes that, more powerful than that, and it becomes a gift. So now, what happens if in the sentence that he's giving this gift or inheritance, he has 2 people with 2 properties, and he uses the word matana by one of them? Does that apply to the other one as well? Well, Rav Sheshes said that it does. And he argued on Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar, who brought a teaching in the name of, who Rav Dimi brought the teaching in the name of Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. And he even argues on Ravin. Ravin brought also the teaching in the name of Rabbi Yochanan and name of Rabbi Lazar, but he wasn't so clear, so like full to the full extent that even if there's 2 people and 2 properties, and only one of them has the word matana, that it will apply to the other one. Rav Sheshes is going to prove it now that he's correct, that even though it's 2 separate properties and 2 separate people, and he used matana by one of them, it's going to apply to the other one. He says, Titania, start in a brisa. If someone says, Tnu shekel livni b'Shabbos, says, I want my inheritance to be distributed to my son, every week he should get 1 shekel, which was the assumed like minimal cost of what his living expenses would be. But we look into it and we see he doesn't really need a shekel to live. He really needs a sela. Sela is double a shekel. He says, I want my son to have $50 a week. It turns out he really needs $100. Well, nice lam sela. There's no one else there that's inheriting. So we distribute it a little quicker. We give it to him. We give him the sell. We give him what he needs. Imam al titin shekel. But if he was very adamant, he says only give him a shekel. He uses like in that negative way. Do not give him any more than. So then a nice shekel. Then you only give him a shekel, which is the lower coin. Imam, and if he says, we're talking about the person that's passing away, he says im mesu, if the son dies, Yershu acherim tachtayim, then others should inherit in front of them. Bein shamar tinu, bein shamar al tishnu. Whether he says in the positive, give him or them a shekel, or he says do not give them any more than a shekel, a nice a shekel, then you can only give them just the minimal amount. Now the explanation for this is that when you see that if he says give them a shekel, and he wants to give them the minimal amount. It turned out he made a mistake. That wasn't the minimal amount. They needed more, so you give them more. But if he's saying, don't give them any more, then he was very clear about that. And if you see that he doesn't really want them to have it fully, he was stingy about this. He's really giving it to someone else. He says, if they die, I don't want their children to inherit. I want it to go to someone else. Then we see that it wasn't just their minimal amount of expenses, that he was being particular about them and being very careful not to give them too much. So if that's the case, then they only get the shekel, even though he said give them a shekel. He didn't say do not give them more than. Now, this is not really the point. The point over here is that Sheshis is saying that who are these other people that are showing up, that are getting the inheritance? They're not the sons. How are they getting the inheritance? The answer is because when he said to the sons, he said titit, tinu, said give. In the same sentence, he said other people should get, which is other people and other property, because the property that's been distributed is not, they're not getting, right? They're just getting what's left. So that means shnei bnei adam, shnei sadish and shnei bnei adam, and we're saying that the term tenu or matana is being used by the sons. It's also being used by the others, even though they said the word Yerusha there. If he said im amar yershu acherim tachteim, others should inherit. By the sons, he used the word gift. By the others, he used the word inherit. And nevertheless, we're saying that the gift that we use, the term gift that was used by the sons, is being extended over to the others. That's Rav Sheshis' proof that if you use the word gift in the sentence, it's going to apply to everyone there and to every property there. Right. 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 And we're saying, nevertheless, the word term gift is going, even though we said, give it to my sons, and if they pass away, others should inherit. Use the word inherit. How do they inherit? Should be nothing. He says no, because the gift that he used at the beginning of the sentence is extending at the end of the sentence. That's Rav Sheshis' proof.
It's not the grandchildren or something?
Is specifically not the grandchildren. You see the Rashbam on the top. Yeshua Achirim Pliny V'loi B'nei Banai. The top line of the Rashbam. He wants to be very stingy. He wants them to. He says it's enough for them to have very little. He wants to.
This example with the shekel and the seller, yeah. Could it be that he just wants to provide like half of the expenses for the son?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing now, that he doesn't want to provide all the expenses. Yeah. Sort of like Social Security.
It also
right. Doesn't cover your expenses. That's what they do.
At least for inheritance, over double the time. He receives half of the expenses.
They'll get it forever. But here he's not saying that. Here he's saying that if they pass away, he doesn't. The grandchildren don't get it. It's gonna go to someone else. It says that the person inherits. It says that he acquires it. It doesn't say the word inherit. He inherits it. It says he acquires it, which means that the word matana gets extended. So the Gemara says this is Rav Shesh's proof for himself. But when he proves himself right, he also has a kasha on Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar and Rish Lakish. He has a kasha on all of them. Well, he asked the question and he also answers it on the other people, right? It says, we're talking about that this other person is a possible inheritor, and it's the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika that says that if the person is eligible to inherit, then you're allowed to distribute it to him entirely and in the way of inheritance. So here, Rabbi Daniel, it would have to be that this other person is some sort of relative. We're going to see on the next page. I'm going to create a slight complication for this, because to what extent did Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika say that an inheritor you can allocate the inheritance to an inheritor? To which type of inheritor did he mean? Did he mean an inheritor that's right now, like one of the sons, or did he mean even like an uncle or some other inheritor? Like how wide is that circle that Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika allows you to pinpoint? Where's the Where's all the inheritance going? The halach is going to be like Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. But at least that's what it seems from the Gemara. So that's what the Gemara is going to say. You have to tell me from those notes. We'll see. We'll see soon. Okay. So what he's resolving here, what Rav Sheshes is resolving, is if we say that it's Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, then the term matana does not need to be applied to the second group of people, because the word term inheritance could be applied to that. First one was a gift. The gift was an incomplete gift. See, when you give a gift, you can give a gift in different forms. You can say, I'm giving it to you as yours entirely, or I can give it to you as someone to watch it, or I can give it to you temporarily yours. When it comes to inheritance, that's a different story. Inheritance is inheritance. So what he's saying over here is that it's going first to you, to these people, as a gift, but not for you to keep. If it doesn't, if they're not alive, I don't want it to go to their children. I want it to go to be inherited by someone else. And then the term gift is not being applied to that inheritance. Okay. Amar Rav Ashi Tashima. Rav Ashi says that I have another proof. It says, Nechasei lach, my property is going to you. Now, that's a term of a gift. He didn't use the term inheritance. And after you, someone else should inherit. Remember, we said that when you say afterwards someone inherit, that means that really you're giving it to them first, and then the other person is just using it. Whatever the case is, he's using the term afterwards inherit. And after that person, someone else should inherit. Meis Rishon, what happens? What's the halacha here? The first person dies. He was the guy that was using the property. Then the second person acquires it. He said that the second person should acquire after. Meis Sheni, if the second person dies, then the third person acquires it. What happens if the second person dies before he ever got it, because the first person is still alive? Then then it doesn't go to the second person, it stays by the first person's inheritors. Okay, the idea over here is that how does it go from second person to the third person? The second person dies. He was supposed to inherit. If he inherits, there's no such thing as a partial inheritance. I mean, partial, you can inherit part of the property, but you can't inherit something that's not yours forever. When it comes to a gift, the person can say, I'm giving you a gift to use it, but I need it back, but I want you to give it to someone else later. That's how gifts work. Inheritance doesn't work like that. So if the term gift is applied to the first person, term inheritance is applied to the second and to the third, then it can't go from the second to the third. So what do we have to say? That the term gift at the beginning of the sentence continues on to the second part of the sentence, to the second person, even though it says the term inheritance. But like Rav Sheshes says, that if you say anywhere in the sentence gift, that the term is applied to the whole sentence, even to other people, even to other properties. So he has another proof for this. Yeah, it's good. Maybe we can answer the same answer we gave before when Rav Sheshes brought the proof. No, you know what we're talking about? We're talking about that the term gift is not extending. We're talking about that it's an inheritance, and it's Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka that holds that you can allocate the inheritance to any one of the inheritors. And so that's what he's doing. The problem is, then how does it go from the second to the third? He says this was actually a question that Rav Acha Breder Rav Avia asked. According to Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, if someone says the statement that the first person should be given the property, and afterwards it should go to someone else. And the first person was a inheritor. Okay. Now, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika, so that inheritance would go to him. So it says that the second person can't receive it. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika doesn't allow inheritance to be passed to another person. Even Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika doesn't allow it to be passed to another person, because inheritance, the way it works, is that it's forever. The Gemara says tiyufta de kula tiyufta. This means that it's a kasha on everyone, because we have such a strong statement here where the term matana, the term gift, is applied to the entire sentence. How does the third person get it if the second person inherited? Temporary can only be a gift.
Because it's never detached from the original.
Right. Temporary is only a gift, though. You can't do a temporary inheritance.
Where does it say gift in the sentence?
We're assuming that when it says nechasei lach, that's a lashon matana. Do you have a traditional Gemara there?
No, I'm with the Quine, but I have it here also.
Yeah, if you go to the page, the Rashbam says Hachi Perushay nechasei lach hainu lashon matana. No, there's a missing word in that. Nechasei nesunim lach. My property should be given to you. There's a missing word in that sentence. It was texting. You text, you skip words. I'm sorry.
Sounds like a lease.
Right.
To each person.
Right. Now, if it's a lease, if it's that type of thing, then good. The problem is that in the second person you use the term inheritance. If the term gift is applied to every portion of that sentence.
What does it mean that the gift is only temporary?
The gift can be temporary. You can give it to him. The expression over here was you can give it to him as an apotropos, like someone to take care of it, but you don't really give it to him forever.
So is it where we end up that the giver of a gift can control its future, but the person who has an inheritance going to somebody else, he can't control it?
Right. Right.
You can't even control the amount, right?
Well, Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika says that he can control the amount if it's his an actual inheritor.
He can control the amount by giving it as a gift in addition, or he can change the
inheritance.
He can change the allocation from what the Torah says.
Yeah. Well, there's some details there, but which we'll see on the next page. But he's able to say that one of my sons should inherit all of it instead of everything.
That's his opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Gemara says, Rish Lakish agreed with most of this, except for that final case where he says that if there's two people and there's two different properties, then we don't say that the term gift is applied from one person property to the other person in that property. It would have to be done in a very specific way where it says inheritance first and inheritance at the end and gift in the center, and that gift in the center could go to both of them. So maybe this should be a kasha also on him, because this wasn't said in that format that Rish Lakish would agree with, that the term gift should be extended over. And the problem is, do you really think that this would be a question on Rish Lakish? Rava said that the Allah is like Rish Lakish from these three things, and this was one of the three things. That the Allah is like Rish Lakish. So now we have a contradiction in the statements of halacha. Here we have a kasha on this statement, and we also have a statement that says the Allah is like Rish Lakish.
Someone who inherits has control, and someone who gets a gift is not control.
Oh, someone that the inheritor has control, not the one that's bequeathing.
Right.
Yeah.
What does Ben Baracus do with the Pishanayim, in his opinion? How do you calculate that?
Oh, that's a
That's the big
$1 million
question.
question.
Yitzi says that's his question also.
Oh. Shab Naftali once again.
I'll give it away. This
Yeah.
spoiler alert. He's going to say that that's an exception to the rule. When there's a bechar, you can't do this.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the Torah clearly says that you can't play with that. You can't say this one should get instead. But the bechar like spoils this. But without the bechar, if there's no bechar here, you're able to allocate all of it to whichever. Yeah, that's what we're going to see on the next page.
Gifting is not affected by it.
Yeah, then you would need to do it as a gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about the inheritance that he allows. The Gemara says it's not really a question of Rish Lakish like Kasha. It's a famous term in the Gemara is Teich K'dei Dibar, that a person is able to retract or to explain a statement if it's done within 1, 2, 3 seconds. The amount of time it takes to say peace unto you, master, teacher. So what Rish Lakish was saying over here is that the reason why over here it's going to be able to be, the term gift is going to be able to be extended from the first person to the second. How does that work? The reason why is because all of that was said in the same Teich K'dei Dibar. When does Rish Lakish say you have to say it in a special format? Yerusha here and Yerusha there, and the gift in the center. That's if it was broken up by a Teich K'dei Dibar. And that's when he said it needs to be so specific. But over here, when it's said all in the same sentence, then the term gift will extend. The Hilchasa and the Halachas Teich K'dei Dibar K'dibar Dami. Teich K'dei Dibar always works. You could always retract or explain a statement. Well, if it's an absolute contradiction between the first statement and the second statement, then there's a machlaikas. If we say Taifas Lashon Rishon or Taifas Lashon Achron, do we take the first statement or do we take the last statement? Which one do we say is the correct one? But if there's any way of explaining it together, that both of them are the same meaning, so then we'll join them together. If it's Teich K'dei Dibar. Okay. Labar, the exception to the term of Teich K'dei Dibar is Me'avedes Kechavim. And one more thing in Kedushin on the top of the page, the next page. What happens is if someone says that this, whatever it is, should be given to the idol, and then in Teich K'dei Dibar he retracts, we say that it's still considered prohibited. Or let's say a wine or something. He says this wine is going to be used for idolatry. The reason for that is because it's a special chumrah that we have for idolatry, that we don't let him retract from that. And also, if someone gives a girl a ring or a coin and he says, Arayat Mikudeshesli, and then he says, just kidding, we say that he needs a get. He needs a get. Chumrah. Because we don't want to create any jinx or something. What do they say? This is there a ksuba? So it would be hard to claim the ksuba. Well, first of all, Kedushin, I don't know if Kedushin gets the ksuba. Nesuin really is the one that gets the ksuba. The ring is just the Kedushin. But we don't want to create any mamzerus or any rumors of mamzerus. If the girl gets married to someone else and someone heard part of it and had the last part, all of this would be problematic. So we consider that we don't allow the Teich K'dei Dibar just to erase it. Yeah. Okay. New Mishnah. Ha'omer ish pleni yerashani, b'makom sheyesh bas. Someone says that so-and-so should inherit me. However, he had a daughter, and he's not giving it to the daughter. He didn't have any sons, but he has a daughter. And the rule is if there's no sons, it goes to the daughter. And he's saying it should go to someone else. Now, the Gemara is going to say, he means even if he says it goes to his brother, which his brother is also an inheritor. It sounds like it's not Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika would say that it could go to, he's allowed to allocate it to another inheritor. You're saying that, well, one side, I didn't tell you the halacha. Biti tereshani b'makom sheish ben. Or if he says, my daughter should inherit, even though there's a son. It says, lo yamar klum. He didn't say anything. It's not considered a statement. And the reason is, shehisnal mashakasu b'Torah, because he's making a stipulation that violates the Torah. The Torah says where it's supposed to go. And he's saying that it should go somewhere else. Rabbi Yechon ben Breka says, if he says this about someone that's able to inherit, then dvarav kayamim, then its statement is valid. And if it's someone that's not fit to inherit, then ein dvarav kayam, then it's not a valid statement. Now there's a slight problem with this, but the Mishnah, it's a little bit, ambiguous. When Rabbi Yechon ben Breka says, Al Mishirai Liyarshay, does he mean that it's one of the sons? It's going to be valid because they're all ready to inherit at this very moment. They're all ready, and he picks one of them. Or does he mean Al Mishirai Liyarshay, someone that would inherit anytime later? If this son passed away, if the son's passed away, we go to the brother. In other words, is he referring to even a brother, like an uncle or something? Or is he referring to just one of the sons? Well, the Gemara says like this. The acher b'makim bas. When we said on the top of the Mishnah, we said the Rabbanan, we said that it's lo yamar klum, according to the Rabbanan. He said if he says that so-and-so should inherit instead of my daughter, so he says that it's not a good statement. The reason is because he said that it's someone else instead of my daughter. But if he said, I'm sorry, I jumped. Ubas b'makom ben, or if he said a daughter instead of a son. Bein abanim. But if he said one son amongst the other sons should inherit. Ubas bein abanas. He said the daughter amongst the other daughters should inherit. Dvarav kayamin. It sounds like the Rabbanan would agree that if it wasn't an acher, if it wasn't someone else, but if it was actually one of the very inheritors themselves, he would agree that that would be acceptable.
Is this talking about, this is referring to a will, correct?
Yeah.
So if he says, I'm going to have my daughter inherit and not my son, like how should he?
That would be a violation. The Torah wouldn't allow it. But here we're saying that, let's say if it's just one of the daughters amongst his other daughters, he doesn't have any sons.
Mm-hmm.
He says, instead of spreading it between the 5 daughters, I just want Machla. Noah, whatever the Slavchat's daughter's name is, should inherit.
He can't.
Yeah, that's what the Gemara is saying. It seems like he can. Problem with that is, Ema Seifa, let's go further. Rabbi Yechon ben Breka says, Imam Al Mishra Liyarshe Dvarav Kayamin. I know Tanakama. But Rabbi Yechon ben Breka's statement was that if he says it about one of the inheritors, then it works. And the Tanakama says that if he says it about someone that's not the inheritors, it doesn't work, which would mean that if it's one of the inheritors, it would work, which means Rabbi Yechon ben Breka and him are saying the same thing. Well, maybe you can, Rabbi Yechon ben Breka is saying that it doesn't have to be one of the very inheritors, it could be the broader type of inheritors, you know.
Does Ben Sora or Moira inherit?
He's killed at age 12.
Oh.
But I guess he would inherit before that. Yeah. Jonathan is asking if a Ben Sarah Mary inherits. It's impossible to be a Ben Sarah Mary and to inherit because you need 2 parents there, right? And he won't end up being a Ben Sarah Mary, right? Unless what happened was they had both parents at the time of the judgment. Then one of them dies, and then he inherits, and he already has a son. And then they kill him, and then will it pass that way? Or I guess so. Could work it out. Ima safe. Okay, we Hanatanakama. The Chitema Rabbi Yechon ben Breka Afilo Acher b'makom bas ben b'makom bas b'makom ben kamer. We can answer this up. We can say the Tanakama holds that you're allowed to allocate the inheritance to one son amongst the other sons, or one daughter amongst the other daughters, but not to a brother when there's sons there, or not a brother when there's the daughter there. But Rabbi Yechon ben Breka will allow you to allocate the inheritance to the brother even when there's daughters. Tanya, but you can't say this. Rabbi Shmuel ben Yishmael Rabbi Yechim ben Breka, Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yechim ben Breka, says, my father, this is the son explaining, that Rabbi Yechim ben Breka's son is explaining what his father said. My father and the Chachamim did not say, they agreed to that. That if it's an inheritor, that's not one of the very inheritors right now, not one of the sons. Everyone agrees that you can't give it to him. In a way, I mean, that's logical, because every person is a potential inheritor if everyone else in the world dies, chas v'shalom. But then there would be, it's inherited somehow, right? Everyone's related somehow back to Yaakov. So, I mean, how far out do you want to go with this? So, Rabbi Shmuel ben Breka is saying they only spoke about the ones who's able to inherit at this very moment. All right, that's right. So, what is the machlekes? Al ben abanav, al bas ben abanus, sha'abayim yirish, v'chachamim liyirish. My father says that they will inherit, and the Chacham said they won't inherit. The problem is, why did the Rabbanan Bayas say that for someone else should inherit instead of my daughters? Even if one of the daughters amongst the other daughters, it should be the same thing according to Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yechim. Well, that's the question now. We have several answers. Naftali, you want to say something? It says, you know what we can do? We can say over here that simple answer. Rabbi Shmuel ben Yishmael Rabbi Yechim ben Breka is only one opinion. He claims that his father never argued about that, but our Mishnah claims that they did argue about that. Just because he's a relative doesn't mean he has a say over what his father said. He's a relative, not as an inheritor. Just because he's the son doesn't mean he can say what his father said. Yeah. Another teretz, kula the Rabbi Yechim ben Breka. Our whole problem was that we were looking to have a machlekes here because we have the opinion of the Rabbanan and we have the opinion of Rabbi Yechim ben Breka, and they seem to be saying the same thing. You need a machlekes. If they're saying the same thing, there's no machlekes. The Gemara answers that, well, you know what we can do? We can add in one letter into this, and we can say that it's all really one opinion. Tanakama says this. You know why they say this? Because they hold like Rabbi Yechim ben Breka. That Rabbi Yechim ben Breka says this. So there's no machlekes. The Mishnah is missing words, and it's supposed to be taught like this. If someone says so and so should inherit, even though there's a daughter, my daughter should inherit, even though there's a son. It says he didn't say anything. But if bas ben abanis ben abanim, but if he says a daughter amongst the daughters or a son amongst the sons, if he says that this one son should inherit instead of all the other sons, so then his words are accepted. It is valid. Rabbi Yechanan Aimer, because Rabbi Yechanan says, Rabbi Yechim ben Breka says, okay, so we had two ways of explaining this Mishnah. Either we don't follow Rabbi Shmuel ben Yishmael Rabbi Yechim ben Breka, or we adjust the Mishnah to say that they're saying the same thing. Amar Rav Yudah Amar Shmuel. Rav Yudah says in the name of Shmuel, his teacher, says halacha Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka. The halacha is like Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka. Now here I want to see what the halacha is like actually. Yeah.
Just to know that inheritance can be whichever way it turns.
If one has several heirs, several sons, daughters, or brothers, and instructs while on his deathbed, whether orally or in writing, that a specific one of his heirs will receive the entire inheritance, or that some of his heirs will receive more than others, the statement stands. This is the halacha only in a case where he does not explicitly state that that he is reducing or eliminating the portion of the other heirs. If he does state this explicitly, the statement is ineffective, in accordance with the opinion of the Rimagash, that the previous Mishnah also accords with the opinion of Rabbi Yechim ben Breka. That's a little complex, but there's a problem with the last Mishnah. said that if one can't increase or reduce the portion of one of his ears. Now, if that's also the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, then you have to explain that. So how does this Mishnah work when he says yes? So he's explaining it. That's because he didn't say explicitly that this one should get more than the others. He's just saying that everything should go to him, and he leaves out the rest of the sentence. Okay.
So again, he has to give the double.
1 second. We're going to talk about the Bechar in a minute. So I have Shmuel, I have Rava. Amar Rava. My time with Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. What's the reason for Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka? Amar Kra. What's a pasuk? And it's on the day that he's bequeathing to his sons. What does it mean he's bequeathing to his sons? He doesn't do anything. It must be that he does do something. The Torah gives permission to him to give it to whoever he wants. He has some say. That's the explanation for Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. Amalei Abaya says 1 second. That halacha that he has the rights to give it to whoever he wants, that we know from he's not able to allocate the firstborn portion to the son of the wife that he loves, which means that the firstborn portion you're not allowed to do that for, but the rest of the inheritance you are allowed to do that for.
You could just leave an inheritance out completely from one son.
Right. It's only the firstborn portion that you're not allowed to do that with. So Abaye says from the fact that it says la yuchal levaker, that means that it's only by the firstborn where you're not allowed to do this. So he's asking Rava, why do I need that other pasuk that says when he's bequeathing to his sons to teach me this? But I can learn it from the negative of you're not allowed to do this by the Bechar. Gemara says only by that we're using for something else. Abachanan Amar Mishum Rabbi Eliezer. Chanan says the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes. Matal Madlaima Layuchal Levaker. What's the meaning of the pasuk? What is it coming to teach us? Layuchal Levaker, that you're not able to make the other son the firstborn, right? To give priority to the son of the wife that you love. Lefishin Namar, because the pasuk says that the person is allowed to allocate where he wants the inheritance to go. Sheyachal, that he's able to v'aleidinu, and it's logical. When it comes to a non-firstborn, he is more powerful. He has more strength over a firstborn. Why? Because a non-firstborn, or any of the other children, he's able to get his inheritance even from potential inheritance. However, the firstborn isn't. And nevertheless, the Torah gave permission to give to whoever he wants. In other words, you could take it away from one son and give it to another son, but not a firstborn. 1 second. But when it comes to firstborn, that he has even less potential. He doesn't get the potential. Like Kolskin, for sure you can remove it from the firstborn. If you're able to remove it from a regular son who gets even from potential property, and you can say that he's not giving it, instead of giving it to, let's talk about, not Reuven, because Reuven's the firstborn. Let's talk about Shimon and Levi. That if you can take it away from Levi and give it to Shimon, even though Levi has such power because he can get even from potential. So Reuven that doesn't get from potential, for sure you can take it away and give it to Shimon. So therefore the pasuk tells me, Talmud Laima la yuchal levaker. Pasuk says la yuchal levaker. Because I could have, in other words, I need la yuchal levaker to tell me that I can't do this to the firstborn. But I'm allowed, it tells me that I'm allowed to do it to everyone else. That's the first halacha. I could have thought that extends to the firstborn. I have to tell me no. Why doesn't it just say liyuchal levaker? Let's go the other way. If it would just say that you're not allowed to you're not allowed to exchange the firstborn portion for the firstborn of the one that you love, then I would automatically know that you're able to do this for other ones. Because I could have understood like this, but I didn't. It's logical. If when it comes to the firstborn, who's very weak, and you're not allowed to take it away from him, right? Even though he doesn't get the potential inheritance. He only gets what's already owned. You're not allowed to take it. Pasha, when it comes to the firstborn, that he has more strength. For sure, you can't take it away from him. Because you can't take it away from Levi. Levi inherits, so for sure you can. So Talmud Leimar, that no, you can take it away from Levi and give it to Shimon. Right? If you can't take it away from Reuven, who doesn't really have it. For sure, I can't take it from Levi that really has it. Right? So the pasuk says, you can take it away from Levi and give it to Shimon.
Is this double portion considered one?
No, we're talking about only the double part, only the extra part.
The regular one, you're able to extend it.
Regular part of this, you are able to, yeah. Amar Rab Zrika, Amar Rab Ami, yeah. Hillels bring up an interesting point. How does the firstborn get the double portion if the original portion you're able to remove? Is it considered a double portion without the first portion there? Or maybe the firstborn you can't touch, even the regular portion. I'm not sure. Okay. Amar Rab Zrika, Amar Rab Ami, Amar Rab Chanina. It's a good point. Put it in the Sefer. What was the name of Hillel's Sefer?
Chokmei Hillel.
May Hillel.
Chokmei Hillel.
Chachma. Chachmei Hillel. Chachmei Hillel. Okay. Amar Rab Zrika, Amar Rab Ami, Amar Rab Chanina. Rab Zrika says the name of Rab Ami, name of Rab Chanina, Amar Rebbe. The name of Rebbe, this goes all the way back to Rebbe, Rab Chanina. Rab Chanina Bar Chama is a student of Rebbe. He says, Halacha ke Rabbi Yechon Membreka. The halacha is like Rabbi Yechon Membreka. Amar le Rab Abba. Rab Abba says to Rab Zrika, Hayre Itmar. He didn't say halacha ke Rabbi Yechon Membreka. He said, Hayre, paskin like Rabbi Yechon Membreka. But my kamifgi, what's the difference between these two statements? Well, each one heard it differently, but is there any practical difference? Mar savar halacha adifa, mar savar ma'aser rav. One of them holds that if you say the halacha, then that means that you really paskin like that. The other one says if you say that there was a story that he paskin like that, that's stronger because he actually did it. What's better when there was actual story? Now, there's sometimes a problem with the story because you don't always know if that was the reason. Maybe there was some other factor there that you didn't know about. Right? Tana Rabbanan, start in a brisa. Ein lameidim halacha. You can't learn the halacha limit limad, not from the Daf Yomi, not from just learning. Limit ma'asin, you can't learn it from a story. Until the teacher says halacha l'maisa, that this is the halacha l'maisa. Shal v'amrlei halacha l'maisa. Let's say he asked, and they told him halacha l'maisa. Told him that's the halacha. Yelech v'yasa ma'isa. Okay, so you go and you practice. You can do it. They told you that's the halacha. Even if like years go by, you heard that's the halacha. That's it. But you can't compare it to anything else. What does it mean as long as you don't compare it? Well, they call it the entire Torah is comparisons. That's the whole Gemara. Is what we had a case here, so we compare it to this and then. Amar Ravashi betrefus. You can't compare trefus. Trefus means an animal that won't live for 12 months. If it's missing of this or if it's missing of that, you can't say, well, he told me by this that if it's missing it, it's okay. So therefore, if it's over there also, it's going to be okay. You know, trefus, there's some things in trefus that almost seem illogical, because the closer to the torso, the closer to the cavity, is more significant. It's more vital. The further out, the extremities become less. It can live sometimes. Problem is that one of the halachas is that by the knee there's a bunch of veins, a bunch of tendons that gathered together by the knee. So if it's cut over there, it's treif. But if it's cut higher up on the thigh, it's kosher, even though that's closer to the. So you can't make any comparison saying that, oh, over there was treif, over there it's also treif, right? Or if over here it's kosher, for the lower down, for sure it's kosher. It's not true. Some things that are okay.
You can't compare because it can't be identical.
Right, because even though it looks like, oh, this should be the same thing, logically it should be the same thing, but it's actually not. And the Tanya was taught in the Brisa. You can't say by Trefus that this is similar to this. And don't be surprised by this. He gets a cut over here and he dies. He gets a cut over there and he lives. So you can't compare the yeah. Okay. Amalei Ravasi le Rabbi Yechanan. Ravasi says to Rabbi Yechanan. Ravasi is a student of Rabbi Yechanan. When you say that this is the halacha, how should we behave? Could we just follow it like that? Amar, he says, you should not act on it. Until I tell you that you should act on it. Maybe we're just learning a Mishnah, or just in passing. Amalu Rava Rav Papa Rav Huna Beit Rav Yeshua. Rava says to his students, Rav Papa and Rav Huna Beit Rav Yeshua, Ki asi paska dedina didi lekamaychu. When one of my teachings comes to you, my rulings, and you see that there's something there's a question in it. Leitikru, don't tear it up. Until you come to me. If there's an explanation for what I said, then I'll tell it to you. And if not, then hadarnabi, I'll retract. But if it's after I pass away, don't tear it up. But you also shouldn't learn from it. Don't tear it up. Because if I was there, maybe I'd be able to explain it to you. But you shouldn't learn from it. We're on top of Kaflamed Aleph. A judge has to judge according to his to what his eyes see. Now, there's two explanations for this. One explanation, which seems to be from the Rashbam, is that you have to paskin the way you understand things, and you can't just say, well, that's what my teacher said, and I have to accept it. You have to, it's only according to the way you understand it. It has to be, but there was a Lubavitcher Rav, I don't know, yeah, Chabad Rav, his name was Shlomo Zalman Fradkin. He was a Rav in Yerushalayim. He was called the Lubliner Rav. He wrote a sefer called Teres Chesed. Lived 150 years ago. He never quotes the Tzemach Tzedek in any of his writings. He was a chassid at the Tzemach Tzedek.
Don't tell Chaim John.
Chaim Zan.
Oh.
He never quotes the Tzemach Tzedek. He said that if he quotes him, he's going to have to argue. And if he disagrees, he would, because he's not allowed to just say the Rebbe said, and I have to accept it. Because when it comes to Torah, you have to use your brain. The way that it appears in your mind, that's a. So there, he didn't want to quote him at all. He didn't want to say that all his psakim were without what the Tzemach Tzedek said. That's the way he learned.
There's also like the concept of Sora. You can still ask you to do what other people before you have concept, unless you somehow are definitely like more smarter.
No. So Yonathan's bringing up an interesting point. What about the Messiah? They have to use the Messiah the way with the tradition. So the Messiah is the background, it's the ingredients to how you paskin. But paskin means that I have a case before me that's not actually written. Do I compare this to this precedent? Do I compare it to that precedent? Which one was it more similar to? So that you have to use your mind to be able to.
Right.
What are the things like that the Rebbe said to do? Like stuff like that. I don't know, that were very controversial.
Yeah. So that's not, you're not paskening. If you had to paskin, you would have to paskin. Yeah.
Like that, or I thought it's like
That's just a minig. That's a minig. Yeah. If it would come to psak, it would be complicated,
This is what the Rebbe did. This is how we do.
I think nowadays
knows all that.
they wouldn't behave like the Teres Chesed. Yeah.
I thought
It's,
this,
I'm sorry.
I thought this statement about a judge only judges on what his eye sees referred to the evidence.
Back to Rava. Back to
Yeah, like-
Rava.
Yeah, so like,
Referring to evidence. Yeah. That's what it's spoken about. That's what it's said about. It's referring to evidence that you have to. You can only judge on what you had right in front of you at the time. Whatever evidence you had, that's how you pass them, right? But what that means also is that you have to judge according to however you understand it as well.
Did you ask Naftali Lowenstein if he has read that Sefer?
Yeah. Yitzi wants to know if you read the Teres Chesed. I think I have a Teres Chesed.
Of course you do.
But I read this in a biography about the Teres Chesed years ago.
What were you reading back?
I remember when I was reading it. I was in California.
God.
Were you in San Diego?
Oh, that's funny. And, this is I guess a grandson. I guess great grandson probably.
Yonah Fradkin, yeah.
I forget what they are. He came. No, Reb Tzadok maybe was younger. No, I forget. There was a story. I think the Rogachever, I think, came to see if the world knows how to learn. You know, so it was going to go around to all the great people, see where they're holding. He felt like he knew reality check. So he came to Lublin, so he went to the Reb Tzadok. Reb Tzadok told him that when I was young, I was also a genius, and I also thought that I knew everything, and like take it easy. And then he said, "Is there anyone else here I'm learning with?" So he said, "Yeah, there's the older Rav. You go to the Teres Chesed." He was still in Lublin then, so go to him. Anyway, he went over there, and he told him something. It's Mefurish Mishnah, something. He told him saying the Rogachever couldn't catch it. So it was like ahead of the Rogachever. Anyway, the Rogachever walked out saying that this old man knows what he's talking about. Anyway. Okay, let's see if we can go a little further.
That's a little confused.
Saying as a chassid, he wouldn't want to tell tzedek because
Right.
that's
Okay. Let me leave it right here. Let's go over here. I have
just
to
getting
I'll leave a
good.
little
It's
bit
just
early. Okay.
Wait up
Okay.
all day.
Have a good week, everyone.
Oh, cliffhanger. Oh my God, we
Thank you
just
very
beat
much.
what a judge.